Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and this is the Not So Serious Keto video podcast, Wednesday edition, because Monday was Memorial Day. I want to start out by giving my thoughts on something that a number of you have asked me about, either in comments or direct messages, which is my thoughts on the recent World Health Organization. I don't know, I wouldn't call it a study. It was more of a meta analysis of other studies, but articles have started coming out about World Health Organization and being against non-sugar sweeteners or artificial sweeteners or whatever you want to call them. But I kind of saw this coming. First, there was that erythritol study not that long ago that I and other people on YouTube have pretty effectively dismantled for its lack of science, and at least from my standpoint, lack of good statistical soundness. But I kind of predicted that this was only going to be the first in a series of shoes to drop, that eventually they would come after allulose and other things. And in this article, they do. They come after everything, anything that isn't sugar. So that includes natural things like stevia and monk fruit as well. Now, my thoughts on the World Health Organization aren't especially positive. And a big reason for that, I feel they are, this might rub some people the wrong way, but sort of a fear-mongering organization. I mean, you never see any good news out of them. It's always, this is the year for Ebola, or there's going to be some new variant of some new virus that is going to require us all to shelter in place, or something. There's always some kind of bad news. It would be just great to see something positive come out of them, like, hey, people are getting healthier, it's wonderful. But no. And in terms of this article, it's all over my news feed, but the one I'll link to down in the description below is CNN. Um, and there are things about this article that I think I can kind of give CNN a little bit of credit for, doing the right thing and getting some alternative points of view. But there is also some sort of sloppy journalism in here in the way that it connects the dots where they don't necessarily connect. So let me just read a little bit of it to you. Don't use sugar substitutes if you are trying to lose weight, according to new guidance from the World Health Organization. The global health body said a systematic review of the available evidence suggests that the use of non-sugar sweeteners, or NSS, quote, does not confer any long-term benefit in reducing body fat in adults or children. Now I'm going to stop right there because I don't think that for those of us who have gotten rid of sugar in our diet, and I've moved on to different sweeteners, I don't think we're doing it specifically for health benefits so much as the lack of health issues that using regular sugar and high glycemic sweeteners does. I mean, we're not taking it as a supplement. It's not a weight loss or muscle building supplement or something like that. It is just a less harmful alternative to something that's pretty bad, sugar and high fructose corn syrup. Now, as with all studies like this, they put a lot of maybes and mays and potentials in it. They're really not saying it does this. There's not a causal effect being shown. There's just some correlation in there, so there may be a relationship. So it says the review also indicates there might be, quote, potential undesirable effects from the long-term use of sugar substitutes as a mildly increased risk of type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Later in the article, they do have a counterpoint of view, which is from Dr. Keith Ayub. I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that correctly, and I don't know why I would assume that given my tendency to mispronounce things. So, Dr. Keith, a scientific advisor for the Calorie Control Council, an international association representing the low-calorie food and beverage industry. So yes, I realize that he is going to have the opposite sort of bias as the WHO study, which, I mean, he works for the industry. He says, quote, insistence on focusing only on prevention of unhealthy weight gain and non-communicable diseases is at the very least misguided. Further, here's a statement from another group, the International Sweeteners Association, which obviously has some skin in the game here, said it is a disservice not to recognize the public health benefits of low and no-calorie sweeteners, and is disappointed that the WHO's conclusion is largely based on low-certainty evidence from observational studies, which are at a high risk of reverse causality. So yeah, it's another organization that is going to be biased, but at least they recognize the statistical aspect of causality, reverse causality, and just observational data. Later in the article, they decide to lump in the natural sweeteners, monk fruit and stevia, with all of the low or no calorie synthetic sweeteners. So things such as acesulfame, K, aspartame, advantame, cyclamates, neotame, saccharin, and sucralose. So they've also added stevia, stevia derivatives, and monk fruit to that list. Now that's a wide net. And there are some things on that list that I don't consume, but to throw stevia and monk fruit into that list really feels wrong to me. So here's a quote. It says, Stevia and monk fruit are newer sweeteners, so there's less published research in scientific literature. However, so first off, they're admitting not a lot of research. However, they probably work in the body with a similar physiological mechanism as other sweeteners. We cannot say that they are different from the others based on the data we have. They play the same role. Okay, that is a pretty significant leap in logic. Because I don't have evidence, I'm going to say that these sweeteners are bad. It's guilty until proven innocent. Now, here is where the CNN article really kind of goes off the rails, in my opinion. It says a recent study by researchers at the US based Cleveland Clinic found erythritol, this is the study I talked about earlier, used to add bulk or sweetened stevia, monk fruit, and keto related sugar products was linked to blood clotting, stroke, heart attack, and early death. So, as I said at the output of this little discussion, that study, from at the very least a statistical standpoint, you could just poke holes in it all day long. But to reference that article, and they link to it in here as well, and that's the one I said from a statistical standpoint, I could poke holes in that all day. But to reference that right in the middle of two paragraphs that are talking about monk fruit and stevia and how erythritol sometimes is used to add bulk to that, I think you're creating this relationship, or CNN is creating a relationship between all sweeteners. I find that rather disingenuous. So just as a summary, I would say I'm not especially concerned about the article or the World Health Organization's findings or opinions on sweeteners. As I've said often in this podcast, you need to do keto your way. You need to be the ingredient police for yourself and yourself alone. And that means paying attention to what you eat and then paying attention to how your body reacts. You may have reactions to certain sweeteners. You may have reactions to certain ingredients. But I think just taking this blanket statement that sometimes gets released by various health organizations and saying, oh no, I can't have any sweeteners now of any kind. I can't even have anything. Oh, wait, I can still have sugar because that's all right. They didn't say anything bad about sugar in that article. I think that sort of reaction is ill-informed. Listen to your body. Another question that I got from people in a recent podcast is talking about having your annual physical and then having the cholesterol discussion with your primary care physician. And I'm probably due for that. And both of the last 2 years, my doctor's tried to put me on a statin. And I've said no. Or I've said, we'll talk about it during my next visit. And as I've done research, as I've watched videos by Dr. Eric Westman or Rob Sives or Dr. Boz, my knowledge of cholesterol, especially LDL and the different types of LDL and their relationship to all of the supposed coronary artery diseases, artery diseases that a person can have, it completely will change your opinion about whether you should take a statin or not. I guess unless your opinion is already that you shouldn't take a statin. So I've been debating what I should do during my next physical because I know here's what's going to happen. It's happened every year. Triglycerides, wonderful. They're low. They're in optimal territory. HDL, nice and high, right where it ought to be. Great. All my ratios in cholesterol as well are wonderful as well. But LDL, a little bit on the high side, which means my total cholesterol is a little on the high side, which means my doctor wants to put me on a statin. And I'm debating whether I should go and, just get the standard cholesterol test. He'll come back and say, oh, cholesterol's high. And I'll say, let me take that again in a week. And then I would do the Feldman protocol. You can look it up. It basically, I think you consume about triple your normal calories for 3 days, and it's practically all carnivore. And you'll come back after like 3 days and you'll see a dramatic drop in your LDL. So I thought maybe I'll get tested twice, come back and go, wow, can you believe how low my LDL is. You know what I ate over the last 3 days? And then maybe guide him towards some of these videos that I talked about before. Dr. Boz and Dr. Saivez and well, Dave Feldman, he's not a doctor, but he's done more research than a lot of them, I think. So that's what I'm debating doing. I don't want to be secretive with my doctor. I want to be upfront with him. And I would love to be able to have him learn more about the role of cholesterol in the body because it seems that most doctors aren't aware. I'm not sure how amenable, amenable, amenable? That seems like I just made that word up, but I know it's a word. Amenable. Yes. How open he's going to be to the idea. Definitely once I do it, I will let you know. Another suggestion that I got for podcast topics was talking about ideal body weight and how do you determine your ideal body weight. This is a complicated topic, but I will give you my simple brain thoughts on them. First off, I don't think you necessarily should try and determine an ideal body weight when you're at the starting line. I think as I was losing weight on keto, I kept finding it easier and easier to shift my ideal body weight lower because as the weight was coming off, first, when I was over 235, 240, I don't know, because I quit weighing myself once I hit 230. When I was up there, I just wanted to get under 200. And once I got under 200, I thought, oh, it'd be cool if I could get under 180. And once I got under 180, I thought, okay, 165 would be great. And eventually, as part of one of my extended fasts, I got down to 154 and change, which frankly I think is too light for me. And in the last couple of years, I've been doing a lot more strength training, so I've put on more muscle mass. So, my weight has gone up. But I think if you set a weight as a target, then there's a finish line, in my opinion, to keto. It turns this into a diet. We're doing this until we hit our ideal weight. And to me, it is a lifestyle. And I think for the vast majority of you, all as well, it's a lifestyle. It may start as a weight loss thing, but then as you start feeling all of these different benefits, you stick with it because it feels good. I think you know your ideal weight when you hit it. When you get there, well, actually, that's maybe not true. I'll loop back to that in a second. I think if you do figure out your ideal weight, you probably figure it out after the fact. You figure it out because suddenly you say, wow, I feel great. Wow, my knees don't hurt going up and down stairs and I don't grunt getting off the couch. And my clothes fit great and I'm looking in the mirror. I think I'm looking better in pictures and things like that. Let me go weigh myself. And then you stand on the scale and you go, oh, this, I guess, is my ideal weight. Now that may shift. It may shift with strength training. It may shift, I don't know, there's probably other reasons. But your ideal weight is the weight where you feel healthy, physically, and I think emotionally as well. The problem is a lot of us, myself included, suffer from body dysmorphia, which means what we see in the mirror is not what other people see. So most of the time I look in the mirror and I see a fat person or a weak person with, scrawny little arms or something like that. And body dysmorphia has been a thing for years. I mean, this is what affects anorexics, for example. But I think it's only been intensified by social media and all the advertising that we see for supplements and beauty products and things like that. We have this image that we need to have this photoshopped, airbrushed six-pack ab look and all the vascularity in our arms and tight butt and all these things. And those things can be achieved, but probably not for most of us who have other obligations in life besides being full-time dedicated on diet and fitness. So my advice is don't think about ideal weight. Think about ideal feel. How do I feel best in my body? And then, only then, peek down at the scale and say, okay, I guess this is my ideal weight. The last two segments are going to be kind of a little bit more about me. Well, the first segment is about my grandson, Colton. But from time to time, you'll see stories in the news about somebody who claims that their child, their toddler or 4-year-old or whatever, placed some massive order out on eBay, ordered $10,000 worth of stamps or something weird, or got on Candy Crush and spent $1 million. But you know the stories I'm talking about. And I always was really skeptical about that. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, your kid did it. You're blaming it on your kid. It wasn't your kid. But Colton got his hands on Terry's iPhone and opened up the Amazon app, and somehow the kid's a genius, I guess, or they just make it really, really easy for a 4-year-old to load up a cart. He started going through and finding all these Matchbox cars and Pokemon stuffed animals, and then announced, "Grandpa, I'm ready to order." And I said, "What?" And he handed me the phone, and I saw this $663 worth of toys he had put into the Amazon cart there. Wow. So, needless to say, we need to keep Colton off the Amazon app. And worst of all, he didn't go through one of my serious keto links, so I wouldn't have even gotten any commission on that. The final topic is one that I teased last week. I think some people understood what it was going to be all about, some of you didn't. And it was called Two Truths and a Lie. It is something that I would use as an icebreaker when I would facilitate longer business meetings where people would get to know each other a little bit better in hopefully a fun and interesting way. You come up with two truths, two interesting things about yourself, maybe your past, your history, it could be a celebrity you met, something like that. But it needs to be interesting, ideally, and then one lie, which should be plausible. That way people really need to think which is true, which is the lie. So my plan was to start making this part of the podcast, maybe once a month. I mean, there's only so much I can tell you about me. So we're going to try it out this month, and you can let me know which you think is the lie. So in no particular order, I'm not going to give you the lengthy story on any of these. I want to try and keep them consistent and brief. And then next week, I'll tell you which were the truths and which were the lies, and then I'll give a little bit more color to it all. So, item number 1, I was a professional kickboxer. Item number 2, as a child, I used to like eating raw onions, just like an apple. Item number 3, I used to have a cat who would make prank phone calls in the middle of the night. So let me know which you think is the lie. Kickboxing, onions, or prank calling cat. And next week, I will tell you the full story behind the two truths. But that is going to be it for this podcast. I'm not sure what's going to be the schedule for the rest of the week. It's going to be a review video Thursday, tomorrow. And then Friday, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull off a cooking video. I think it might wind up being my what I eat in a week. And I still got to edit that all together. There's a fair amount of footage, but I want to make it nice and tight and short. And then we'll decide if that's something that's interesting. And if so, we will incorporate that into the weekly or monthly schedule. But that is going to be it for this particular podcast. As always, I appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me. I enjoy spending time with you. Thanks for watching, or listening, or watching.